Rob Hasty. I'm the Executive Director of Human Resources for the Roseville Joint Union High School District, and we really appreciate you taking the time out of your schedules to be here tonight. Want to take an opportunity really quickly to thank the Placer County District Attorney's Office, who is behind bringing the One Pill Can Kill presentations to our community. We hope that what all of you walk away with tonight is that you're a little bit more educated, have a little bit more knowledge to share with your kids and with your families and your loved ones. And we hope that the information is useful, and we want to thank the families that are here tonight to share their personal stories. I'm sure as you hear their stories, it will resonate with you as parents and members of our community. As I said, our hope is that you walk away a little smarter and a little bit more informed about fentanyl and the impacts that it can have for your family, as it has on so many families across the country. With that, I'm going to turn this over to Lisa Botwinick, who will take it from here. And if you need anything, I'll be at the back. Restrooms are off to the left in the back side of the theater here. Thank you.
Thank you, Rob, and thank you to the Roseville Joint Union High School District for allowing us to be here to do these parent information nights on fentanyl. It's so critically important that we're getting this information out to families and parents. Hopefully everybody knows we have gone to every single high school in this district and done an assembly. So every single one of your kiddos, if they were at school that day, they saw us present very similar information, but it's just as important that the parents know. You'll hear from our families who lost a loved one that they didn't know this information before they lost their children. So they didn't have the opportunity to educate or warn their children about these dangers. So we want to make sure you're all armed with this information so that you can protect your families. My name is Lisa Botwinick. I'm one of the supervising deputy district attorneys at your local Placer County District Attorney's Office. Just to let you know, we do have a documentary film crew who is filming this parent information session tonight. So you'll see the camera. They'll be mainly focused on the speakers, but if you feel that the camera is coming too close to you, please just wave them off and they will respect your privacy. For those of you who don't know, the Placer County District Attorney's Office is your prosecuting agency for Placer County. That means that we prosecute all the crimes that occur within our county jurisdiction. Everything from petty theft, DUIs, robberies, assaults, all the way to homicides. We handle all of those prosecutions in our office. But what we've been seeing over the last couple of years is a rise in fentanyl. And there's been a lot of questions about what is fentanyl, where is it, what does it look like? So we wanted to educate our community to let you know the main form in which we're seeing fentanyl in our community is in this form of fake counterfeit pills. And this is the form that's presenting the most danger to our young adults and students who are looking to experiment or maybe self-medicate. What's important to know is that these are not prescription pills that are laced or that have fentanyl added to them after market. These are pills that are fake from the very beginning. They're made in garages and basements. They're not made in real pharmacies or laboratories. These pills usually don't contain any of the pharmaceutical chemicals that you would expect in a prescription pill. They contain fillers and fentanyl, which is what makes them so dangerous to our students and our young adults. We're finding that 98% of the most common pills bought from dealers are fake, and the majority of them contain fentanyl. The most common forms that we're seeing these fake prescription pills are oxycodone, Percocet, Xanax, even Adderall. So it's easy to see how students and young adults are attracted to these prescription pills that look like what some of their friends or family might be getting from the pharmacy, from a doctor's prescription. But these aren't coming from a doctor or a pharmacy, they're coming from the streets. This photo shows the difference between real oxycodone pills and some fake oxycodone pills containing fentanyl that were seized off the street. I can't tell the difference between these, and law enforcement can't tell the difference between them either. We actually have to send these pills to the Department of Justice at their laboratory to be tested to find out what they're actually made of. So if we can't tell the difference, we can't expect any of our students or young adults to know the difference either. And that's a really important message to get across to our students, is that it may look real, but it's not. They can't be fooled by the appearance into believing that it's an actual prescription pill.
So, what's a fentanyl? A fentanyl is a fake prescription pill that looks just like the real thing, except it contains fentanyl. Fentanyl is an extremely powerful opiate. It just mixed together with a bunch of other stuff, then pressed down into pills to look real. They can be disguised as almost anything, from Oxy to Percocet to Xanax or Vicodin. And the scary thing is, fentanyl shouldn't be anywhere near these pills. It's dangerous. We are talking about a drug that's 50 times stronger than heroin. Just a tiny amount, literally a couple grams of sand, can be the difference between taking a diet or taking something that will straight up kill you. The worst part is, you can't even test a fentanyl. The only way to know if your drugs are legit is if they're prescribed by a doctor. If not, you're getting ripped off. That guy on Instagram or Snapchat who tells you they're legit, he's BSing you. He'll tell you they're real, even though they're not. There are literally hundreds of millions of these fentanyls out there, and they look just like the good thing. I mean, can you tell the difference between these two? What if I told you they're both fentanyls? How about these? Also fentanyls. Convincing, right?
Unfortunately, fentanyl is cheap, which makes it really inexpensive for drug manufacturers and producers and dealers to make and sell, to make profit off of. But unfortunately, it's very highly addictive and very lethal, which makes it so dangerous to our young adults and our students, because literally one pill can contain enough fentanyl to kill one person or many people over, depending on how much fentanyl is in that one pill. Fentanyl-related deaths are on the rise, both nationally as well as here in our own county. It's hard because we live in a really good county with really good neighborhoods, really good schools, really good law enforcement, but we're not immune from the dangers of fentanyl. So it's important to know that it's on our streets and in our neighborhoods and in our malls, just like it is everywhere else across the country. In 2021, we had 33 Placer County residents who died from fentanyl poisoning. Nationwide, we're seeing an almost 500% increase in fentanyl-related deaths. It's gotten to the point now to where fentanyl is the #1 leading cause of death in the United States, more so than car accidents. And it's astonishing at the rate that we're losing people, especially our young people. This graph shows our data here from Placer County to show our overdose from the coroner's office and how many of those overdoses are actually fentanyl related. You'll see a couple of years ago on the green graph, we didn't have any fentanyl related deaths. But last year in 2021, 33. So far this year in 2022, we are already up to 20 fentanyl related deaths in Placer County. And that's from like 2 weeks ago. We're not done with 2022 yet. And unfortunately, we're likely to see that number rise. This is the first time we've seen where over 50% of our county's overdose deaths are fentanyl related, which just goes to show how prevalent it is in our community and what a toll it's taking. It's really important for families to understand, the statistics behind this, the numbers, what these pills look like. But it's really important for families, and especially our students, to hear from our families who have lost someone to fentanyl poisoning, because that's really what makes this real for us, to understand that this does happen in our community. And we have families in our community who are suffering with the loss of a loved one to fentanyl poisoning. We're lucky enough to have with us several families who are willing to share their stories with us so that we know their children's stories and what happened to them, so that we have these examples when we're talking to our own children and our own family about some of the risks and dangers. I'd like to introduce Laura and Chris Didier. They're going to talk a little bit about their son, Zach, and what happened to him and his fentanyl poisoning.
Hi, everybody. It's great to see you guys here. It's a really important topic. It's definitely one I wish I had known about in 2020 when we lost our son, Zach. He was a high school senior at Whitney High, and he was doing great. He was 17. He loved school, so he had maintained straight A's. He was an athlete. He ran on the track team. He starred in the school musical. He played Troy Bolton in High School Musical, and that was in the spring of 2019. And he also loved music, so he taught himself how to play piano. He was just a really happy guy. Everybody loved him, gravitated toward him. He loved supporting his peers, and his teachers loved him. We were just this morning doing an awareness assembly at Whitney High. And there were a lot of students there that still remember him. They were underclassmen when Zach was there. They remember getting the news of his death. And it was such a shock to everybody because there were no warning signs with Zach. And that's what this new crisis is all about. And that's why when we found out what had killed Zach, we just decided that we wanted to talk about this. We needed to talk about this and warn the community so that other young victims wouldn't follow. So this was 2020, December 27th. It was the lockdowns, and it was Zach's senior year. We can kind of only really speculate what led him to decide to experiment with what he thought was a legitimate pharmaceutical pill. Maybe some boredom, curiosity, maybe a little bit of anxiety around his college applications. He had just submitted his UC applications, and he knew he was really competitive to get in. We won't ever exactly know. We know that on December 24th, he connected with someone that was marketing these deceptive pills on Snapchat. He tried one. That one must not have had much fentanyl in it. For some reason, he decided to try another one on December 26th. And he never woke up from that pill. So his dad, who you'll hear from in just a little bit, his dad found him at his desk on December 27th with his head on his keyboard, his hand on his mouse, unresponsive and cold. And it was a real shock. It was a real mystery. There were no pills in his room. He had no history with addiction. And he was just gone. No apparent reason. I'd never heard of fentanyl. I'd certainly never heard of counterfeit pills or drug dealers on Snapchat or none of that. Zach was our youngest. Our older two kids had never struggled with substances. But it was through getting into his phone, his girlfriend knew his code, and we were able to get that to the detectives right away. They found this interaction with this seller. It was a brand new connection. And they found fentanyl in his toxicology report. And that's when, like I say, we decided we wanted to be a part of the solution to what was happening in our county. Zach represents this new demographic of victim that didn't used to die from drugs, young people self-medicating or experimenting. It used to be you could be on a healthy path and lead a really healthy life, but now experimentation is different than it used to be. It used to be experimentation might lead you to recreational or habitual use, and maybe eventually addiction, maybe eventually dependency, and maybe eventually down that progression, you might succumb to the drug. But in that process, there would be red flags, there'd be opportunities to get well, there'd be opportunities to intervene, change behavior, get back on a good path. But fentanyl is robbing so many of that chance to get better. And then people like Zach, who barely try something, can be gone so fast. And our kids should be able to learn from their mistakes. So that's why we want to share this information with all of you. After Zach was killed, we got all of his college acceptance letters. That was really hard. He was a beautiful boy, just like all of your kids. And I just wish I had known the conversations to have with him. And now that we do know, obviously there's a lot more awareness happening nationally and locally, which is great, but we can't just hear it. We have to talk about it. We have to sit down with our kids and talk to them about this and how easily it can happen and how it's happening to kids, just like each of our kids. So I really appreciate you guys taking time. I know we're all so busy, so I appreciate you guys taking your time out of your day to come and hear our message. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. I'm Chris. I'm Zach's dad, and we're really grateful for the opportunity to speak to you and to your school. As Laura already mentioned, we did talk to Zach's school today. It was rather sobering and emotional for everybody, especially for us, since we've been in the gymnasium countless times for other reasons. And to be there to share who Zach is and how amazing he has been in our lives with pictures on a projection machine just did not fit right. It didn't feel natural. That's why we think this is so important to share. It's a very tricky topic to talk about, but it's that important. Before I forget, please stop by and talk to us afterwards. There's a lot of great resources. I'd like to promote the resource card. It's a business card, some great info on the very back to help people who may be in need. Feel free to grab as many as you'd like and have your children put them in their wallet, give it up. Laura already described eloquently who Zach is and how he has affected us and our family and all his friends and his community. He is such a shining example. And it wasn't only at Whitney High School. So many schools. I think today we've had 16 assemblies in multiple schools. In every school, someone comes up to us afterwards and said, I knew Zach, or I knew someone who knows Zach, and here's how Zach helped us out. So he really was contributing to his community, and to see this tragedy happen, it's so sobering. But as it's already been alluded, fentanyl does not discriminate. It doesn't matter your social economic status. So I'm going to talk a little more about the danger and more of a national level. Center for Disease and Control reports different types of deaths in our country. And I brought one slide. I call this a growth slide. And if you look at it, it's broken down in different age demographics. And it compares 2015 to 2020. And those white bars are fairly uniform, and you might see a dashed line at the top showing about 6. So what that's saying is there's been a 6-fold increase in fentanyl deaths in our country in 2020 as compared to 2015. So in that short span of time, 6 times more people have died just from fentanyl. That's alarming. But why are we here? I'm asking the more impacted demographic. These are high school age kids, 14 times greater. This scares me. This keeps me up at night. And this is what motivates all of us to be out here to say, guys, this is no joke. We really need to start talking about this. It's over 2 times greater than everyone else. Why is that? Well, there's many different factors that come into play here. One is the cell phone. It's been in our children's lives for much of their youth. It has evolved to become a reliable and trusted resource that they like to use. They put a high value in finding solutions on their phones above parents, coaches, teachers, and counselors. It's helped them solve math homework problems. It's helped them climb the social ladder of their friend group. It's helped them learn to play a musical instrument. So it's very popular. They're very attached to it. The other influencer are legitimate prescription pills that you actually get from a doctor through a pharmacy. Prescription pills are far more common today than they were when I was in middle school or high school. And today, many of the youth themselves have been prescribed a legitimate prescription by their doctor. They've observed their cousins, their friends, their siblings, their parents. Everyone has some kind of prescription for something. And in the history of legitimate prescription pills, they've never made one pill that would actually kill someone. You would never hear a doctor say, okay, here's your prescription, but don't take one pill because it could kill you. They don't make them like that. And that's what's in the minds of these young adults. They feel like a legitimate pill plus accessibility through their cell phone, which helps them solve problems, is a trusted solution. But in reality, with what's going on now, there is an unperceived danger that we need to talk about. This is the second CDC data group that I'm presenting. This is showing what I call a drug type death. So in 2015, it shows all the different types of drugs that cause death in our country. In the bottom row, I'm sure can't read it, but it's from ages 1 to 80. And there's different types of drugs like benzos, cocaine, of course, fentanyl, I highlighted it in yellow, and heroin. And if you look closely, you may see like a 20-year-old heroin was involved in over 40% of drug-related deaths. That was 2015. Here's what's happening now, and it's worse today. CDC hasn't updated the reported data for 2021 yet for this data, but it's, I assure you, even worse. Fentanyl has completely taken over. In our country, the number one cause of death between 18 and 45-year-olds is fentanyl. Fentanyl changes everything. Unfortunately, it's in vapes, it's in edibles, it's in all the different illicit products that you can get out there, and people don't understand. One of the topics that talk about is the lethality of it. And so I like to use something we can all usually associate with, and that is a sugar packet. I'm sure you guys have seen these. This is like a sweet and low stevia type of sugar packet. These typically have 1 gram of artificial sweetener. According to the National Institute of Health, a little more than one of these packets of cocaine is lethal if consumed all at once by an average adult. That's a lot. That's a very little amount for a big effect. Doesn't take much. Cocaine is very powerful. However, if I pour more than half of this packet out, the remaining, not even quite a half a packet of heroin is enough to be lethal for an average adult if they consumed it all at once. If we empty this packet, touch the inside of it, the remaining residue, as little as 4 or 5 milligrams, can kill you and me if we shared it, if it was fentanyl. People don't really understand how lethal fentanyl is, and that's why you see so many people impacted by it. CDC reported over 71,000 lives were lost from opioids, mostly fentanyl, in 1 year in 2021. That's enough to fill our newest NFL stadium in 1 year. That's a fatality rate of about 200 per day. That's an airline crash every single day in our country. And it's actually been a statistic for almost 2 years now. A fentanyl-related fatality every 7 minutes. I will not forget how I felt and how we all probably felt when we were around on 9/11 and what happened. And our country started a 20-year global war on terror. And much of that fight was all over the planet, but a lot of it was in Iraq and Afghanistan, and 6,800 Americans lost their lives. It was dangerous. It was not easy. It was hard. I know because I was there. On average, that's almost 1 American life lost every single day during the global war on terror. Fentanyl is every 7 minutes, 200 times greater death rate. This is really sobering, guys, and this is scary, but there is hope. This is the beauty, is we can stop it. And we tell this to your children, to the assemblies. You guys have absolute control to stop it by just being aware and sharing this information. So for you parents, thank you for being here. My strongest recommendation is to sit down and have a talk. Get smart, go to onepillcankillplaster.com, or there's several other websites we could talk about where to go. Song for Charlie, Stop the Void. There's so many great sites. Get smart, learn about what's the dangers like in our area, and then sit down and talk to the kids. I would recommend asking, hey, who are you talking to on social media? You realize if you lock down their phones, if you try to take Snapchat off, if you put Net Nanny, Bark, Life 360, those are great resources. On YouTube, you can find out how to work around all of that. So really, it's important to just sit down and say, guys, I am really scared. What's going on here? Are you seeing drug deals on social media? Are you seeing menus? Are you seeing any ads about one pill can kill? Can you share that to those you care about? Talk to the parents of your children's friends. Talk to their teachers, their counselors, their coaches. Spread the word. That's the biggest thing, is bringing awareness. It's that important, you guys. Every 7 minutes, think about it. Today was a really emotional day because of our history at Whitney. It's kind of apropos. Today is National Sons Day. And as hard as it is to talk about this, it is that critical, because our children have more than demonstrated their ability to bring new innovation and progress in our world and to make it a better place. And with them being the most impacted demographic, we have to help save them. So show them love, show them your fears, your concerns, and say, guys, how do we work through this? How do we navigate these dangerous waters together as a family so that you're not caught up into this? It's truly that important. Thank you for your time and for coming out here today.
I'd like to next take this opportunity to introduce District Attorney Morgan Geyer. Morgan is a district attorney for Placer County and oversees our office and our prosecution efforts as it deals with fentanyl.
Good evening. As Lisa said, my name is Morgan Geyer. I'm the district attorney for Placer County. I first became aware of just how extensive this fentanyl crisis was really with Zach's death. When the case came into our office to try and determine how to navigate it on a legal landscape that hadn't been done before. And I quickly realized that we went from this could happen to anyone to this is happening to anyone, all over our county, all over our state, and all over our country. So we had to figure out how we were going to tackle this. How are we going to help our community navigate through this epidemic? And there are a number of things that we are doing. And so I want to tell you just a little bit about sort of our approach to how we're going to tackle this crisis and hopefully end it. First, it begins with enforcement. Our law enforcement, our local, our state, and our federal partners have prioritized fentanyl, have prioritized the apprehension of the dealers and the sellers that come into our community and sell these. We will hold them accountable. We have in this county now prosecuted 3 and are prosecuting 3 individuals who have sold fentanyl that have led to the death of young adults in our community. As you see on the warning up above, when anyone in our county is convicted of selling narcotics, they're given a warning. They're told, you are now on notice that this is dangerous, and if you do this again, you can be charged with murder. And we have done that, and we are doing that here in Placer County. A couple of other counties across the state are doing it now as well to hold dealers accountable when they sell this poison to our children and kill them. We will continue to use every resource available to hold them accountable as aggressively as we can. But realistically, we're not going to arrest or enforce or prosecute our way out of this crisis. That is one arm of it that we will continue to do. But really, the problem is solved through education and awareness. And that really begins right here with all of you. I can't thank you enough for coming tonight, because when you talk to your friends and your coworkers and your colleagues and your children about what you've heard here tonight, and you start asking difficult questions and asking and checking in with your kids, that's how we'll end this. By having those difficult conversations about knowing what the risks are. It may be as simple as checking in with your kid to find out how they're feeling about things. Sometimes it's the little things. Sometimes it's the everyday pressures of life that might drive a kid to experiment that had no warning signs, that had no indications that they were going to try something new. Kids should be allowed to be kids and screw up and not pay for it with their lives. The only way we can do that is to reduce the demand by educating them and ourselves about what we do. I tell the story, I have 3 little boys. They're not yet in high school, but I still talk about this with them all the time. We were coming back from a family wedding in Montana. We're driving across the Nevada desert, and there's a billboard in the middle of nowhere that says 1 pill can kill. And my son said, "That's the 1 pill can kill. That's what you guys do at work." And he actually mentioned, "That's what Zach's all about." And I knew, at least at home, I had accomplished my mission so far. But it's on all of us, because this is real and it's happening to everyone. So thank you for being here tonight. I can't thank enough Laura and Chris and Liz and Laura, who you will hear from tonight, who have become champions of this message. We get people in the door, they drive the message home. So I am pleased to see some teenagers here. Please tell your friends you've heard this at school. For those that haven't seen it, talk to them. Make them aware. Point them to the websites, because it may be that conversation that you have with them that saves their life. And that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to save lives. Thank you for being here. I'll be around afterward if you have any more specific questions on what we're doing as an office. But thank you for being here, and thank you for your attention.
These photos are actual photos of fentanyl pills that have been taken off of our Placer County streets by our drug task force. These are not small quantities. They're coming in bagfuls, bucketfuls, trunkfuls, and we're even starting to see it locally in rainbow colored. This picture is a visual representation of what Chris was talking about how small of amount of fentanyl can be fatal. So it's easy to see how 1 pill is enough to take the life of a young person, because that's all the fentanyl that needs to be in that 1 pill to take a life. I'd like to take this opportunity to introduce Liz. Liz is going to talk to us about her son, Cade. Cade was another local Placer County boy who unfortunately lost his life to fentanyl poisoning.
Sorry, I talked in an assembly twice this morning, and I still sometimes am at a loss for words. I just lost Cade 9 months ago. He was 20. And I had that conversation with my kids. I have 4 kids. I have a 26-year-old, Cade was 20. I have an 18-year-old daughter in college, and I have a 15-year-old who's a sophomore in high school. I had the conversations. I thought I did my job. I've never used drugs. They didn't come from a household that way. I didn't think it would happen to me or any of my children. But they're being deceived. They're being told lies, and they're trusting their friends. My son bought what he thought was a Percocet pill off someone he knew, who he defended, who he called a friend, and he was lied to. And he died 4 weeks before his baby was born. I had to get that dreaded phone call that none of us ever want to get, that Cade was gone. And then I had to call his girlfriend, who was 9 months pregnant. What this has left behind, not just for Cade, but for our entire community, is a fatal mistake. One tiny, tiny little choice changes everything, like Chris said. But you need the nitty-gritty, and that is, what do you do now, right? You've heard our stories, you know about our kids, you know this is in our communities, but I want to tell you what I know now. That is talking to your kids. But I'll tell you, my 15-year-old right now, he wasn't honest with me. He was at a football game a couple weeks ago at a high school in Placer County. All his friends were using vape pens. Some of them were nicotine, some of them were marijuana. They're not being honest all the time. It wasn't until I said, "What did you do?" "Nothing, Mom, I didn't do anything. I would never do that," especially after Cade. He's a good kid, good student, but kids experiment. But we're in a different landscape now. I brought out a drug test. I have quite a few of them. His story changed. I would never expect that 3 weeks ago I would be talking to you about my 15-year-old. Because you think after everything that's happened and everything he knows, but kids are still going to be kids. But this isn't the 70s and 80s anymore. We can't just try something. And you know what he told me? He said that the dealers smoke it first. And if they don't die, that's how his friends do it. He makes the dealers smoke it first. Mom, it's not in vape pens. We ordered those online. Those are safe. This is what his friends are saying. This is what high schoolers are saying right now. They shake their heads when we tell them at assemblies that it's in marijuana, but it is. The cartel is smart. They know we're talking to you guys. They know we're talking to our kids. They see our ads. So they're getting creative. They're making candy with fentanyl. They're making it in rainbow colors. They're disguising it as Skittles and Sweethearts. We just lost a 4th grader in San Antonio, Texas last week who thought she would eat a Sweetheart. They're creating customers because there's a demand. And as long as our kids continue to think it's okay to do these things, they're going to continue sending it this way. And if it's not going to be in pills, it's going to be in candy, it's going to be in marijuana, it's going to be in vape pens, because that's a prevalent thing right now on these high school campuses. And don't think it's not happening, because it is. I have teenagers I know, they're doing it in the bathrooms. So my advice is, like they said, get on these websites, listen to some of these help groups. There is help out there. There's Granite Wellness Center, that if your child already has a current addiction or is struggling with anxiety or struggling with things that they're currently already doing, there's still a chance. You still have your child. You don't give up on them. You get them into rehab and you get them help. Whatever you do, just make sure you keep hugging your kid and you keep talking to them and you find every resource possible to make sure that they stay alive. Thank you for being here tonight.
One of the things that we are seeing is we are seeing fentanyl coming in these fake prescription pill form, but also being mixed with other substances. The regular controlled substances we often hear about as street drugs, methamphetamine, cocaine, heroin, but law enforcement is recovering fentanyl mixed in with marijuana, and it's being found in vape pens across the country. And that's why it's such a risk to our students and our young adults, because they don't know what they're getting if they're not getting it from the pharmacy or an actual trusted source. Instead, they're trusting their friends, or they're trusting social media, or the kid in the back of the classroom. At this time, I'm going to introduce Christina from our Placer County Health and Human Services Department. Christina spent a significant amount of her career studying not only different mental health issues, but specifically cannabis and some of that effect that it has on our young adults.
Thank you, Lisa. Oh, wow. This is difficult, but I really appreciate the courage of the parents here and for the parents that are here that have lost a child, and also for the parents that are here that want to save the children they have, because it's important. This slide is a real distilled synthesis of the research that's really coming to light now, that's very, very compelling and undeniable, because as THC potency has increased from when, I'm 63 now, I'll be 64 in November. When I was a teenager, THC was like 3%. Now, THC, or marijuana that you got had THC at 3%. And today, marijuana, cannabis products can be anywhere from 20 to 30 to some of the waxes and the distilled products up to 99% THC. So as THC has become more potent, it is becoming more of a hard drug, aligned with the same responses as fentanyl. So when young people are using cannabis only, it's really an easy crossover for the fentanyl. And our recovery partners that work with young people across Placer County have reported now that young people are using fentanyl regularly. So there is a wide range of youth, from youth that don't have the warning signs, for youth that might be using, experimenting, and the youth that might actually have a lot going on in their lives and substance use has become regular for them, substance misuse. So it's so important that we know these connections. And what's happening is, because the THC is getting stronger and the marijuana they're using is stronger now, it's impacting that developing teen brain even more so than before. So now we're seeing very clear connections between anxiety, depression, and suicidality. And this, contrary, because this is not a very popular conversation to have anywhere right now. People don't really want to talk about it. But a lot of times the publicity and the marketing is to reduce anxiety to use marijuana. But for the young developing teen brain and regular use, it actually will lead to these situations. It can. So we want our young people to know that actually this is a risk to their mental health. And the research is getting a lot stronger now. So in San Diego, we have two amazing champions that have been working in public health that were able to get this data from the coroner's office in San Diego from 2019. And of the under 25 completed suicides, THC is the #1 drug found in toxicology, and nearly 50% of the age development of under 25 included THC, but nearly 50% of those were actually THC only. This is a really uncomfortable truth. It's something people aren't talking about. And for those young people that really need help, really need support, we know what the pandemic was like, and I'll talk a little bit more about that later. We want to make sure that they get the resources, and we'll be sharing more of those later, because this is the way to arm our young people, to help them. If they need help, we want to be there for them and create that support system. Granite Wellness has student assistance programs in schools all throughout Placer County, which is wonderful. And we have the website where you guys can look for more resources as well. And so fentanyl is in vape pens. And as you see, it only takes a little bit. And I won't really belabor this so much because I think Lisa made that point. So this is evidence. And then the harm reduction strategies that we can use to help arm people. I actually have my naloxone in my bag there. Are one of the most important tools that we can use to prevent death from fentanyl is naloxone, and the commercial name is Narcan. Of course, there's counseling, there's treatment, but if you know anybody that might be exposed to any drugs right now, just to have this, I don't have that in my life personally, but this is in my glove box because you never know when you might need it. One of our treatment partners, he had to use it not too long ago. He was sharing that at the last parent night that I was at with him. Naloxone is very easy to use, and I will go into the test strips a little bit because that's a bit of a, it's not as reliable as you might think, but naloxone is really important. So let me go into the chocolate chip cookie effect about test strips, and then I'll talk about this a little bit more. I'm kind of filling in for him right now, so I didn't remember which slide we were supposed to be on, so I apologize for that. So the chocolate chip cookie effect really describes how fentanyl test strips are not as reliable as they could be, because as we don't know what's been done, how they've manufactured it, we don't know what the risk is and where the risk is in the pill or the product. And I think this little video kind of shares it better than I could. So it's not very reliable because you don't know what you're going to get. It's like Russian roulette, but very magnified. But something we do have to save lives, and that does save lives, is Narcan. And Narcan is actually a safe antagonist that will bring back somebody that's going under from fentanyl use, from any opioid use. It's very potent, and it's very easy to use. There is a video that you can look at online by the company, Narcan company, that really explains it very well, that makes it easy and comfortable for you to know how to use it. And each pack that you get has instructions here that are very clear and easy to use. Anyway, so you can be able to look at the website, and then you can use the instructions. And it's really easy. You just, if you notice anybody, the symptoms of overdose are constricted pupils, severe respiratory depression, where you aren't able, you're not supposed, can't even breathe maybe, cold and clammy skin, blue lips. There's a whole list of symptoms that you can see online also to help you be able to understand. But to have this, it's completely safe, and you use it in one nostril. Before you even use this, you need to call 911. You want to call 911 before you administer, and then you lie the person on their side and on their back, and you use this. You just squirt it into the one nostril, and you wait a few minutes, and if they don't revive, you might actually have to use the second one. So each package contains 2 doses, and you're able to get this through prescription. You can get it through your pharmacy. Medicaid, Medi-Cal covers it as well. And then we do have information and resources on our website that will also show you where you can get Narcan. And sometimes people are a little hesitant to use it because it might be outdated, but the professionals have told us to still use it anyway because it still might work. So this is the most important tool that we can have in our packs to make sure for students. I know some schools are actually making sure that the staff has it in the office and the nursing staff. Again, after administering, you always want to make sure that you go to an emergency room because it could actually, there's a follow-up that's really important to make sure there's not extra side effects. And am I done? Thank you. I hadn't done this part before, so a little unrehearsed. Thank you.
One of the most important things to know about Narcan is that all of our first responders have it. Law enforcement, paramedics, EMTs, all carry Narcan. So that's why calling 911 is so important. If you don't have it, call emergency services right away so that they can administer the Narcan and try and get someone to help revive them so they can go to the hospital for their follow-up treatment that they're going to need. The other thing that's important to know about Narcan is that it is safe if you give it when someone doesn't need it. A lot of people are concerned that, well, what if it wasn't really a fentanyl overdose and I gave someone this nasal spray? That's fine. It will not hurt someone who isn't having or suffering from overdose symptoms. So it's a better safe than sorry situation. And it's an excellent tool, like Christina said, that you can get through the pharmacy. We can contact Granite Wellness. There are several groups throughout the county that will help you get Narcan so that parents have this on hand, just in case, because you never know when your student or your student's friend might suffer some symptoms and you need to react. Next, I want to introduce Laura. Laura's son, Spencer, was also lost to a fentanyl poisoning here in Placer County. Her son was also a lifelong Placer County resident, played sports, and was part of our community.
Hi, everybody. Thanks for being here this evening. I wanted to share a bit about my son and how he lived, who he was. Spencer died 2 years ago this month. He was 20. He did grow up right here in Roseville and attended schools. In fact, he played sports here at Oakmont. He was a pitcher at Roseville High School. He played competitive sports. He umpired anything with a board, that kid. In water, on land, he did it. We do talk about, why do kids why do they experiment? Why would they do that? Well, sometimes they might have ADHD or anxiety. They're having trouble with their peers. I had those same conversations. All of the parents here had those conversations with their kids about drugs and the risks, but we didn't know about fentanyl. And as you're hearing tonight, fentanyl has changed the game. If they have a substance problem, there is no relapse. The relapse kills you. If you try it one time to experiment, you don't learn from it, you die. So unfortunately, Spencer had ADHD, and although, we had gotten him help as a young adult and in the community with counseling and good diet and exercise, he still struggled, and he also developed some anxiety. This was 2020, it was September, it was a lockdown. A lot of the things that he normally would have been able to utilize to help his anxiety were taken away. Spencer was a student at Sierra College. He was very proud he had gotten his EMT certification, and he was hoping to become a firefighter. He was supposed to be, he was actually enrolled in the January 2021 Fire Academy at Sierra. But like I mentioned, he was struggling with some anxiety, and he reached out to somebody he knew and trusted. And he asked for a Xanax pill. And Spencer was living on his own and an apartment here in Roseville, and we got a call the next day that his girlfriend hadn't been able to get a hold of him. His location hadn't changed. He didn't show up for work. And I had the most horrible sinking feeling. And when we showed up at his apartment, and he looked like he was sleeping, but cold, he never woke up. So that's why we're here. And 2 years ago, I probably thought, that not my kid. I would have listened to this on the news and thought, That's not me. This is not my problem. That's the opioid issue. It's not going to affect me, right? We turn off that bad news when it doesn't affect us. But I'm telling you here, the 3 parents that are, 4 parents, 5, my husband's here, it is you. You saw the slides. It's 14 to 18. They're killing our kids. They're marketing to our kids. They're lying to our kids. And they believe them. There's a boy, and I have his mom's permission. I'm going to just share this very quickly, from Lincoln, just down the street, 18 years old, died a year ago, September. Cole had ADHD too. In May, when he graduated from high school at 18, he was also struggling. His family was going to move to Oklahoma. He was a little concerned about leaving his community. He wanted to self-medicate, and he also reached out to somebody he could trust and got what he thought was a Percocet pill. I know they talked a little bit about what the symptoms are. What do you see when somebody has taken too much of an opioid, a fentanyl? Shallow breathing, loss of consciousness, lethargy, inability to talk, blue lips, blue fingernails. But something you might not know too is that you may hear them snoring or gurgling. That's their body. The medication is hit their brain and it tells them to stop breathing. And they stop breathing, their heart stops. And they can't save themselves. So if they're alone, they can't self-administer Narcan. But Cole's grandfather heard him in the other room. And he went running in there and he wasn't breathing. And he administered CPR. He called his mom, who was across town, and she came running over. They called EMS. They arrived in time. And they gave him a dose of Narcan, and Cole shot up and saw everybody around, and he's like, started crying. He saw his mom. She thought he was dead. He wasn't breathing. I'm so sorry, Mom. I didn't know. I didn't know. His mom didn't know. But she then knew about fentanyl, and she knew about, and Cole knew about it being in pain pills. But they didn't know it was in other things. And 4 months later, when Cole was still struggling with his ADHD and his anxiety, he looked up somebody on his phone and asked for an Adderall. And he's like, make sure it's real, it's legitimate. Dealer told him, absolutely, I got you, right? And Cole made a fatal mistake, and he took the Adderall. And this time, Grandpa wasn't there to save him, and Cole didn't wake up. So that's happening right here. That was a year ago. This was a mom who knew something about fentanyl, a kid that knew something about fentanyl, but he didn't know it was in everything. So these are the conversations that you have to have. This is the knowledge you have to arm yourself with. Get Narcan. Talk to your kids. One last thing. The biggest mistake parents make is saying, it's not my kid, not going to happen. I was in an Uber last week going to the airport, and we were sharing stories. And this person had a sad story, not my story, but I shared mine. And he had a 22-year-old student who had graduated from Whitney and was up at school in Washington. And I said to her, I said, please share my story to your son about fentanyl. She turned and looked to me and she said, but my son is a good kid. In that moment, I felt very parent shamed. My son was a victim, and now he was victim blamed. And that was the biggest mistake she could make, because you're not with your kid 24/7. You don't know what they're doing. You don't know if they suffer a breakup with their girlfriend, or need to cram for a final, or have a sports injury and they need to play in the state cup next weekend, and so they think, I gotta play. They're infallible. They're not infallible. They're impulsive. Brains don't develop until they're 25 years old. They will make a mistake, even if they're a good kid. So thanks so much for listening. Please pass this on, okay?
As you've heard from some of our parents' stories, a lot of the students and young adults who we see that are falling susceptible to these fake counterfeit pills are students and young adults who are struggling with other issues in their life. Some may be experimenting, but some might be trying to deal with stress, anxiety, pain management, depression. But instead of talking to a trusted adult or their doctor, they're turning to social media for answers. And they're getting pills that they think are going to help them there. And unfortunately, those pills that they're looking for relief from their pain or their anxiety or their stress is what's killing them. Christina from Health and Human Services is going to talk to us a little more about some of the things we can do as a family to try and help build up our students and our young adults so that they're more well-rounded and hopefully aren't turning to social media and their friends for self-medication purposes.
Thank you, Lisa. This is something I feel a little more comfortable talking about. There are so many pieces. If I can get this down a little bit, there we go. Finding support and making support and reaching out and destigmatizing the need for us to reach out, I think, is really important for our young people. And now I'm going to talk about something I think I gave most of the parents that walked in the poster, and you guys can get that at the end here. This is not new information, and information isn't everything, but we really want to give you some hope when you go home tonight. Having Narcan on hand is so important. Reaching out to your young person and making sure that they feel comfortable, that they have somebody that they can talk to and make a connection with and be honest with, a reliable, trusted adult, is important. There are so many pieces. Everything here that's been said tonight is really important. And the pandemic really turned our worlds upside down. And for young people that were already experiencing challenges, it was really tough. Did anybody have an easy time during the pandemic? I don't think so, all of us. And on the other hand, though, we really invite you to think about bringing to your family a post-pandemic reset right now. And this is the next step for us, because we can always be focusing on, we always have the ability to focus on bringing ourselves back to balance. And these are all tools, but as Chris said, and we've all talked about tonight, we are a society of pills, taking pills, and it becomes very commonplace to take pills to cope. And sometimes that is the appropriate response with a professional that's guiding the process. But also, I think this is also a really good time with with a post-pandemic reset for us to look at all the other ways that we can make sure that we're in balance in our lives. And these are simple, but it's when they're not balanced or when they're missing that they can impact the mental health of ourselves and our children. So the 4 quadrants basically represent the different areas of your life. The top one on the left is your gut. Now, we know that your gut can respond, and it's also eating too much sugar or carbohydrates is not good for your physical health. But it also, now we know that it also impacts your emotions, your sleep, and your memory. So this is an important place to evaluate and kind of look at if there's any adjustments that can be made. The top right quadrant is the sun. the power of sun and being in nature. And I think the pandemic was really helpful for us to really begin to realize how important it is for us to be outdoors, the healing power of nature, going for a walk in the forest, in the park. How many of us started gardening during the pandemic, and we found that that was really something that really helped our mental health. And this power of the sun is really important too, to regulate the hormones connected to your sleep cycle and your emotions, along with boosting your immune system with vitamin D. Really important, the sun. So if you're not getting outdoors enough, you're not getting that benefit. And it's a really good place to kind of do a little check and see. In the bottom left, the quadrant is mindfulness, the power of exercise and mindfulness and breathing. To prevent the mountain of stress, we know that exercise is really important. And we also know that we can't really get rid of stress in our lives. It's going to happen. We're always going to have things that are going to be hard, whether, as you said, Laura, a breakup, which can be extremely hard, or finals, or getting accepted to college, or maybe it's family issues and challenges. There's always going to be that. But it's making sure that you're releasing that stress every day so it doesn't build up and create that anxiety and create those other effects on your mental health. And breathing is extremely important as well. A lot of our young people these days actually do breathing exercises, and they learn that in school early on. This is becoming more commonplace. But the power of the breath is amazing. When you think about our bodies and how we have toxins every day, and that stress causes more toxins in our body, the breath actually releases 70% of the toxic debris from our bodies, our breath. How many of us have found ourselves holding our breath when we're nervous or tense about something? So if we think about that, breathing is not just important to calm ourselves and have that stress response to stop the stress from building up, but it also releases harmful toxins from our body. And the bottom right quadrant is really interesting. This is fruits and vegetables. Yes, we want to make sure that we're eating fruits and vegetables, balanced diet. This is not new information to anybody. However, this is really showing to be more fruits and vegetables that you have in your diet actually can reduce your chance of depression. And this is research that's becoming stronger with every next study they do. And the other part of this is the drinks, is what we're putting in our bodies, not just the food, but the liquids. So if you think about coffee drinks are really popular for young people these days. Does anybody know anybody that actually might have a coffee drink instead of a meal? Any young people that might have a coffee drink instead of lunch, right? So over time, that could really make an impact because you're not getting the nutrients that you need. And that sugar can also impact your emotional health and also your sleep. So one of the first symptoms a young person might be showing that they're not getting enough sleep or they're stressed, and so it's interfering with their sleep cycle, is they start wanting to drink coffee, go for those caffeine drinks to help them compensate. But then if they're not sleeping because they're drinking more caffeine than they should or at all, then they need to balance out. And what are they doing to help themselves sleep at night? Because they have too much caffeine, or they might not get enough sleep. And all of these things go to the middle. They point to the middle because sleep is one of the most impactful risks for youth mental health right now in our country. Our medical professionals are sounding the alarm. You might have seen a lot of different news articles or commercials and things going on right now because our young people aren't getting the solid sleep that they need. So if you do this little like reset and you can use these posters and put them up on your refrigerator or whatever you want. And kind of just do a check, a personal check. Where are we in balance here? Are we doing too much of this, that, or the other? Where can we improve with this? And just periodically teach your family to really do that self-evaluation to help get to that point. And the other part now is going to, sorry, Lisa. She's so good. She's got everything really organized. And so you got that. Now, for our resources. We have a lot of really wonderful resources in our county. It's just making sure that people know that the resources are there. So you can go to the onepillcankillplacer.com and you have to, it's a number one, it's not, don't spell it out. Also Granite Wellness Centers, like we talked about, is an amazing resource. And our raisingplacer.org website is really great. There's several pages on there where you can go and you can find a lot of different chat functions for young people where they can text or chat, call the Suicide Prevention Lifeline, the local resources, national resources, and also a lot of different research and videos on there. And then these are all the partners here that are really working hard to help make sure that everybody has the help they need. And I'm going to turn it over to Lisa because she's so good at this stuff. Thank you.
In addition to the county or local resources on the previous slide, there's a lot of great nonprofit organizations out there that are also bringing awareness to the fentanyl dangers that we're seeing in our community and nationwide. Song for Charlie is a great resource. The videos we show tonight are from their website. They have a lot of other videos that are great for you and your family to watch. Stop the Void is another great nonprofit that has a lot of information and some really good short documentaries about the effects of fentanyl poisoning on families across the United States. But if anything we really want you to leave with tonight, we want you to leave with the message that if the pill does not come from your doctor or your pharmacy, you have to assume that it's fake. And you have to assume that it contains fentanyl because that's what we're seeing on the streets. That's what we're seeing with law enforcement. And unfortunately, that's what we're seeing in the stories of our victims. Thank you so much for coming out tonight. We have a little bit of time left, so we're going to open up if there are any questions from anyone in the audience that anyone of our speakers can answer. If you prefer to ask them in private, you can ask them at the end. But if anybody has any questions, I invite you to raise your hand or step forward and we'll see what we can answer for you. Any takers? Yes. So the question was whether or not the increase in THC in marijuana is not only seen at the street level, but if it's also seen in legal dispensaries. And Christina's nodding in response, yes, it is. When you go to a dispensary, at least it looks more like a store and they tell you what the THC level is in each of the marijuana products that they're selling. You don't necessarily get that with the dealer on the street. So you don't necessarily know what potency you're getting if you are buying it off the street. But even the marijuana that's being sold in the dispensaries is a much higher potency, much stronger marijuana than most of us adults and grown-ups experienced when we were younger. It's just a different product altogether these days.
Just real quick, one of the things that we don't always think about is maybe because you're over 18 or you have a marijuana card, you can go to a dispensary and get what you need and trust that source. But the problem is with our high schoolers and even middle school is they're not going to tell you that that's what they're doing if they're not honest with you that they're smoking. So because they don't have access to the dispensary like you would as an adult, or maybe they don't have a marijuana card, then they are getting it from the streets or they're getting it from a dealer. And that's where you have to worry about the fentanyl because it's being put in marijuana. So unless you're actually going to the dispensary and buying the marijuana for your child, they're getting it from someone else. So it's just food for thought and something to think about, because we think about it in our terms as adults, but kids can't buy it legally, so where are they getting it?
Absolutely. Thank you very much, Liz. Any other questions? Yes, sir.
You mentioned if somebody's actually caught with a pill or a trunk full of pills, that there's a warning issue, and then are they at that point, is it like a slap on the wrist or let back to go, and then if you do it again, we're gonna bust you, or like, can you touch on that a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely. And I'll use the mic just so everybody can hear it.
Thank you.
So for those that are caught selling, they're prosecuted for selling, and there are, well, we're in California, so I won't say super stiff penalties, but we will prosecute them. I'll have a side conversation about that. But no, they're prosecuted for selling, assuming there's no death connected to their possession for sale and their actual selling. They'll be prosecuted for selling, along with the consequences for selling narcotics, whether they're selling meth, selling heroin, selling fentanyls. There will be a warning given as part of any resolution of their case. So in addition to their jail time or their prison time or their probation or whatever the circumstances are, they will also be told from here on out, if you do this again and someone dies as a result of it, next time we're going to hold you accountable for murder because we told you already. We are borrowing this sort of concept from our DUI laws. Someone gets a DUI, they get, whatever they get, they pay their fine, they go to their class, but they're told, this is dangerous. If you do this again and you kill someone, it's going to be murder next time around. And as long as we can prove that this is the person who sold the pills, they knew it was dangerous, they disregarded that and said, I'm going to do it anyway because my profit's more important than the safety of anyone else, and they do it and someone dies, then the law says we can come after them for murder, and that's what we're doing. So we're taking that law that's been applied. If they don't kill anybody their first time they're selling, they're prosecuting for selling narcotics. We're typically a little tougher in Placer here than we are in other areas of the state, which is why most of us live, hopefully, in Placer County. But that would be independent. But along with that, they get that warning so that the next time around, we don't have to play the guessing game of, did you know how dangerous it was? We know it is. We know you knew because we told you, and we had a judge tell you, or a prosecutor in open court said, here's what's going on. You do this again, and we raise the stakes. Does that answer your question? All right.
Thank you, Morgan. Any other questions? Yes. So the question was, we've talked about fentanyl being found in marijuana and vape pens, and whether or not there have been a lot of deaths from that. We haven't had any local deaths that I'm aware of that have come in the fentanyl or in the vape pens or in marijuana. But the problem is you never know how much is there. And that first hit off of the vape pen might not have any fentanyl in it. The next hit might have a fatal dose, just kind of like a pill. You could break one of these pills in half and one person takes one with no consequence. The other person takes the other half and they die because the fentanyl is not evenly distributed. So we're definitely seeing stories of adverse effects where people are suffering the side effects, where they're starting to have overdose symptoms, but we haven't had any locally yet. Hopefully we don't. But when you can buy things online and ship it, you never know where it's coming from or who's selling it. Were they deaths or the injuries? Yeah, I'll have to go back and look at was that one a death? It might have been. We'll have to go back and look at the articles. But you can Google it, you can search it, and you'll find out. One of the questions we get a lot is, why would drug dealers try to kill their customers? That doesn't seem to be very good for business. And you're right, as a business model, it's not very good. The problem is they're not necessarily trying to kill their customers. They're trying to get their customers addicted. And because fentanyl is so highly addictive, just a little bit mixed in with your cocaine or a little bit mixed in with your marijuana or a little bit mixed in with your fake pill is enough to get someone addicted to make them come back again. So they're taking the chance, hoping that they're just going to create an addict and a future customer that they're not as concerned that they might lose one here and there. Because unfortunately, in our society, there's always another buyer to replace that one. Any other questions? Oh, I got one more quick. It is. It's the most confusing thing possible. So how can you be addicted to a substance that so little kills you, right? Like, how can you use it more than once? If you get the correct dosage, you get just a small enough amount, it can give you that effect of the use and the addiction and the high without the suffering, the fatality. But it's a very exact science, which unfortunately these clandestine labs are not using when they're making these fentanyl pills. Unlike many of you may have heard of fentanyl that they actually use in hospitals. Like, fentanyl is actually a prescribable medication that's used in hospitals for pain management, but it's made in very regulated circumstances. It's given in very prescribed, controlled environments because they're so careful of that dosage, because they want to make sure that they're not giving too much. And that's what's unregulated with our fake pills. Chris, yeah.
That's a good question, and that was one of my first questions. It's like, how could something so potent be something a person can get addicted to? One of, I think it was Ed Hernan, Song for Charlie, explained it pretty well. There's something called a therapeutic window when you're talking opioids. Morphine, for example, may have a therapeutic window like this. Therapeutic window means anything less than the minimum, you have no feeling or effect from that drug. Anything above the minimum threshold, then you start to feel the effects of that drug, whatever that drug is trying to help you, whether it's helping you manage anxiety or pain or whatever. Anything above the maximum for that person, based on their weight, their age, their health, could lead to overdose conditions in their life. So morphine, therapeutic window might be like this. Fentanyl therapeutic window is very narrow. It's a very hard target to hit. And so, as Lisa and we've all explained, you may take half a pill and not have really any effect because you're hitting below that and it's easy to overshoot. But when you hit that target and you have the effects, it's incredibly powerful, and it's really, really difficult to break free from it. And then you struggle with addiction. I don't remember where I heard this expression. Fentanyl can kill you fast and it can kill you slow, because either you die from too much, you exceed, or if you're lucky, you got into that window and you survived, you're going to be struggling with addiction. And months later, you could subject yourself to dying from it. So, oh, yeah, go ahead. I know.
I just wanted to add a little bit of something as well, which is why our youth are so particularly vulnerable, is with opioid use, you start developing a tolerance. So as you are using it, you can tolerate more in your system. So people that have become chronically addicted to fentanyl, they can tolerate more. But that's why our younger victims who have zero opioid tolerance, it's called being opioid naive, it's a much smaller amount that can cause your death, as opposed to somebody that has maybe become addicted and their tolerance is a bit higher. So that's really important to remember for our youth.
Thank you, Lauren. I think there's another hand in the back. Yes, so my mom had surgery over the summer, and she's in the hospital and she's coming out of her surgery. She's not really all there. And she hears the doctor or the nurse say something about fentanyl. And she's like, no, don't let them give me fentanyl. I'm like, it's okay, Mom. You're in the hospital. It's okay. It's medical grade fentanyl. You're going to be highly monitored. She's like, but you said, I'm like, I know I said, but I meant don't buy it on the street. It's okay if you're in the hospital and it's given to you by your doctor. It's a totally different situation. Do we have any other questions? I don't see any hands. So thank you so much, everyone, for coming. We really appreciate it. Again, we have some resource tables out in the lobby that have information for our resources and information you can take home to further educate yourself, but also to share with your friends and family. And also our families and other speakers will be up there as well to answer any further questions you have. Thank you.